Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Odin's movie blog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well. And today, coming to you from very, very cool Tennessee today, because we just had a cold front come through. It's going to be around freezing tonight, which I'm very excited for. We're going to be talking about the projections for the Terminator Dark Fate box office. This is the film that has been getting a lot of conversations going. A lot of people, I would say for the most part, has been mostly negative about this film, just not really living up to the T2 film that it is trying to and has been trying to chase forever. Every single film that's come out since T2 has been trying to chase the heels of the success of that movie and has just never gotten to that point in time. We've gotten some interesting concepts, like I would say Rise of the Machines was an interesting concept, but really just didn't play out all that well story-wise. Terminator Salvation took the story in a direction it had never been in before, actually going to the events of Judgment Day itself, but also still suffered from some story problems as well. Terminator Genisys was just downright awful, and it looks like this is going to be following in the footsteps of Terminator Genisys because of not only some of the similar numbers that it's receiving, but also because of the response that it's getting as well. And I'm sure that a lot of the political motivations behind this movie are probably a huge reason why. But also, let's just be honest, politics aside, we just want a good Terminator film. We just want a film with a Terminator in it that is good, that is action-packed, that uses practical effects. That's one of the reasons why that film, T2, still holds up to this day. Because, yeah, you got your visual effects in there, but they use so many practical effects, and it was a very simple concept, a very simple story. And all we want is a story that's at least going to take the story in a different direction, do it well, without crapping on the originals, which is apparently what this film does within the first 5 minutes, with a certain death of a certain key character, which is something that I've heard already because, lore, that's stupid. But also a lot of other things too. And so let's go ahead and look at the box office for so far. So far, it's made $14.9 million. Now, Odin, how has it already made $14 million? Well, it got a limited release internationally. I know that it was in the UK of places and a couple other places as well. In fact, because of the news site we're using, thenumbers.com, because boxofficemojo.com is dead. And I must say right now, kudos to the Reddit group that's actually trying to bring it back. There's a group on Reddit right now that's trying to come together, get people who code, all these other things together to basically rebuild from the ground up what Box Office Mojo used to be, because obviously IMDb really crapped the bed with their new service. But internationally, it has released in the UK, France, Thailand, Germany, Malaysia, and of all places, Bulgaria. Why Bulgaria? I'm not exactly sure. Hasn't really made a whole lot there. It's made a whopping $48,000 there, so who knows really at this point in time. But it has come out in other places, and this is how it's basically played out so far. The largest chunk of the pie has come from the UK, which makes sense. The UK tends to be one of the top three as far as overall sales at the foreign box office. China tends to be, if there is a China release, tends to be number one there. Sometimes you'll see it compete with others like France, but usually the UK is able to dominate there. So it made $3.6 million there, $3 million in France. What I was told from people on the ground in the UK is that they only had certain show times. So it was open wide, meaning it was accessible at various theaters, but it was very limited as far as how many showings a day it was being shown. So that does seem to indicate that they're going to get a wider release at more showtimes, at more theaters in these various countries as of this weekend, since it is now officially opening up worldwide. But based on what I've heard from the people that were there, it seems that even at these limited early showings, which you would think for a Terminator film, people would say, oh my gosh, yes, I need to see this, no one showed up. They were in mostly empty theaters, and I honestly think that is the story of the weekend that is going to be a weekend of shame for this film, because now, not only do we understand that it has a production budget of $185 million, which, remember, means that you have to add on more money as far as how much money it was spent. So let's assume that about half of that you have to tag on top in addition to that number, would put this film much closer to the $250 million plus range. It means that it needs to make more than $250 million at the box office to break even. And we know that because most studios take in around 60% of the entire box office when all the calculations are done at the end of the day, which means that this film needs to make a crap ton, probably closer to the $350, $400 million range just to even break even. And it's probably even more than that because I have not actually broken down the math on that yet. But it needs to make a lot of money. And the early projections right now are pretty awful. In fact, this is from BoxOfficePro.com, not to be confused with BoxOfficeMojo.com, but Box Office Pro. And they are projecting that the film Terminator Dark Fate will make between $28 and $38 million, which if you take that average, you're looking at an average around $33.5 million is what the film is expected to make. That is not very good. Living in an age where most successful films make around $100 million, living in an age where a film like Joker, which is getting close to the $900 million range, opened to around $96 million, to make 33.5 in a franchise film that used to be one of the strongest franchises out there, that probably shouldn't have been a franchise in the first place, but it is not very good. Just for a frame of reference, this would put the film as the second lowest grossing Terminator film since T2. The other films in the franchise did better. So Terminator Salvation did better. The only film that would have done worse than this film, if these numbers stick, and it could even be lower than the 33.5. Again, that's the average, right? The range is 28 to 38. It could be less than 28. It could be more than 38. But based on early ticket sales, based on the $2 million Thursday previews, which is significantly less than a lot of other films, keep in mind that films like Thor: The Dark World had about a $6 or $7 million Thursday preview. So that, again, Thor: The Dark World was not a good film. I should tell you a little bit about that, right? It's not looking good, is the short and sweet answer of all of this. It's not looking good for this film at all. This is going to be one of the worst as far as overall grossing Terminator films in history. And I would say that it likely will beat Genesis, but probably not all by that much. And you know that the story that they're going to be trying to spin is that, oh, people just don't want to see it because they're sexist, or, oh, it was because of a campaign online by a bunch of misogynistic trolls to not see this film. No, the film just doesn't look good. And one of the reasons why is because you're trying to force politics into a franchise that shouldn't have any of that in it. You already have the machine versus man dynamic. Why do you need to add in all of the modern 2019 nonsense into the story when most people have shown consistently that we don't want it? How many Ghostbuster 2016s and now how many Terminator Dark Fates are we going to need for Hollywood to finally get the message that we don't want that nonsense? We're tired of being preached to. Just give us a good film. Why do you think Joker has been so successful? Joker has political elements in it, right? There's definitely political narratives within that story, but the difference is that they're not shoving it down your throat. They're not saying 2019, 2019, 2019, this is how things have to be. It's, hey, here's our story with complex characters that are well written, and oh, by the way, there's these other crazy things going on in the background that you could either pay attention to or not. Versus all the marketing for this film has basically been, oh, let's focus on the fact that this is a female-centric story, and that's a great thing. How about instead, it's a good story with good characters, and gender is secondary? Why is it that every single thing we do nowadays has to be focused on gender or race? Why can't we just be people? Why can't we just get good stories that deal with a wide variety of people from a wide variety of backgrounds instead of just being so obsessed with it? It's getting very ridiculous. And Paramount, hopefully you're learning your lesson with this, man, because Lord Almighty, this is not going to be good for you. But just as a frame of reference, the film that this likely will, again, if it makes the 33.5, we could really then look at other films, or the only other film that it's going to be even close to as far as opening weekend numbers for, and that, of course, would be Terminator Genesis. And so let's go ahead and pull up the numbers for Terminator Genesis, because that is the most recent one from 2015, and also it had the most... it had the closest opening box office to it. So keep in mind that this film was made for about $155 million, right? So that's Terminator Genesis. So it costs about the same, but Dark Fate costs a little bit more. And so when you take that into account, this film made $432 million at the box office by the end of its run. Based on that, and based on the fact that you're looking at a very similar opening, because the opening weekend for this film domestically was $27 million. So again, still within that range, still very close to the range that Dark Fate's being given right now, and it could definitely underperform, and I honestly think it probably will. Maybe not below 28, but probably closer to 28 than they might expect. But of course, we'll have to wait and see how the numbers actually play out. But when we look at that, and when we understand it in its context, and also that this film actually didn't have a terrible drop-off from week 1 to week 2, we also need to look at the dates. This is a film that came out in the summer, in July, and it only had a 50% drop. That's actually not terrible of a drop. It just didn't make a lot of money in its initial opening. You're not going to have the same type of environment for Dark Fate. Dark Fate is going to be going head to head with other films very, very quickly in the overall release schedule. And I don't think that it's going to be able to hold up that competition, especially with the early reviews and the early words that we're hearing about it. You have a huge film coming out next weekend in Dr. Sleep, the sequel that many of us didn't even know that we really wanted to The Shining. But that film has had great promotion, has had great marketing, and is likely going to be the number one box office, the number one movie at the box office for that weekend. Let's say that that film makes between $20 and $30 million as well. Of course, I don't have the official numbers in front of me, but seems to be at least within the ballpark. Then you're looking at a film here that's going to make $10 million, and if that's the case, then that means that Dark Fate's going to have about a 60 or 70% drop from week 1 to week 2, potentially. And I can see that happening. You don't look around and see, early screenings in the UK, mostly empty theaters. That shows that there is not a level of excitement for this movie. When you have Terminator fans like I am, keep in mind that one of my favorite rides at Universal, one of my favorite rides was the Terminator ride. Being able to get and sit in for like Terminator 2.5 and all the 3D effects and the live actors there, it was so much fun and I loved it. The Terminator theme is one of my favorite movie themes of all time. And to see what they've been doing with it, especially since Genesis, has just been so upsetting because they're taking a franchise that should be great, that could be great, and throwing James Cameron's name on it and saying, look, it's going to be great because James Cameron's a part of it. And then all we end up getting is just, half-ass writing and just laziness in every single aspect of the filmmaking process. It really is sad. And we live in an age now in Hollywood where they think they can just slap the name of any franchise they want onto a movie and that it'll automatically be successful. And that's why there are films like this that come out where I say, I want them to fail because I want Hollywood to get the message. It might not get the message, but it really should. But going ahead and looking to that release schedule, as I said, Dr. Sleep comes out the weekend after. There's no way Dr. Sleep's not going to get number one at the box office. Again, it's got a lot of hype around it. I know I'm excited for it. It's a Warner Brothers release. It's going to get a lot of press. You also got Midway coming out, which is going to bring in a certain type of audience. Last Christmas is coming out, going to bring in a certain type of audience. So where is Dark Fate going to fall in this, especially when you have a film that it's going up against named Joker that has been so consistent in its drops, around 40% drops week to week, some cases even into the 30s. That shows a lot of legs, right? That shows that the film is continuing to bring people to the theater and bringing people back to the theater. Is Dark Fate going to have that same type of reaction when the fans are at this point overwhelmingly rejecting it? Especially within the first 5 minutes, you basically tell all franchise fans, screw you. All the stuff that you loved, all of the hopes and dreams that you had for this film are now washed away. Because now we've completely invalidated one of the most important characters in the Terminator franchise. And obviously, I'm trying to toe the line of spoiler territory there, but many of you probably already know what that is, the character that I'm talking about. But I'm looking to that. I'm looking to these films, and I just don't see how it could possibly compete. I really can't. And so with all of those things being taken into account, I would say that there's a pretty good chance that Dark Fate doesn't even get close to Genesis. Because the other thing that you don't realize is that the domestic box office for Genesis was terrible. $89 million. It made most of its money in the international markets. But, as I said, what we notice from these films and from the early release of Dark Fate is that it is not doing well. Even the early releases in other countries, it's not bringing out a lot of people. There are people reporting many empty screens, and this is essentially unheard of. The one saving grace that you could potentially see from this is, of course, China. Because China is the reason why the first film, Genesis rather, in the new age of films, did so well. Again, most of that $342 million came from China. If we break that down, $105 million came from China alone. Now, will Dark Fate be able to perform as well? Big question mark. There's some people trying to say, hey, there are certain people at play in the production that actually have ties to China. You could potentially see it do better there because of these ties. I don't know. But if the film does any better than Genesis or does well in general, it's not going to be because American audiences, because Americans are pretty much tired. We're saying, hey, you've already screwed up you've already screwed up Terminator. You're not doing any justice with the characters. Please let the Vice script go. Basically, this is a franchise that has lost its fan base. It's a franchise that has left its fan base in the dust and apparently just doesn't even care about them anymore. The only thing that they have is, look, we've got this giant film with CGI effects and, ooh, foreign audiences, go watch it. If I was a member of the Chinese audiences, I would be looking at films like this and saying, you just want the money and you're just putting the least amount of effort in because you think I'll go see your movie because it's CGI and because it's a big budget film. And I think that now is a time better than any for Chinese audiences to say, we're not a guaranteed audience. We're not just going to show up to you because you kowtow to our censors. And I really hope that the things going on in Hong Kong right now really do bring about a change in China. Not just in the movies, but politically as well, because I think it's important. But what are y'all's thoughts about this? Do you think that the numbers can be very close to the $27 million opening here versus the $33.5 million opening that is set for Terminator Dark Fate? Do you think that there is going to be enough of a similarity between these two films for us to see a similar number? And do you think that we're going to have a high international box office because of places like China? I honestly have a lot of questions about that. It could definitely produce, but it might not. It also costs a lot more to make this film. So even if it were to match the numbers made by Genesis, I just don't think it would be enough to make up for it. But anyway, what are y'all's thoughts about this? Let me know your thoughts about this in the comment section below. Like this video, smash that like button, give me a subscribe if you like more box office breakdown type videos. I'm trying to do them a little bit more because I like talking about them. I like going to the numbers.com. I like going and looking at projections and seeing how they plan out. They're just kind of the thing that I like to do. They're kind of my comfort zone in a lot of ways. And hopefully, I noticed that one of the persons that commented yesterday first said, oh, look, Odin's speaking slower. This is new. So I'm trying to be more aware of it. I'm trying to be more clear with it. But as you all know, with ADD, it's hard to really stay focused. But before I end the video, I did want to give a shout out to someone real quick because I got a movie sent to me by Mill Creek. So Mill Creek, thank you very much for sending me this. And I believe that it's not a movie. No, it's a series. So it's called Heroes in Blue, both the DVD and digital copies of this. Heroes are all around us and most exemplified by those who serve and sacrifice to protect the public. This 5-part documentary series features interviews of current and retired police officers of the LAPD who have served on SWAT teams and 911 dispatches over the last 30 years during the city's most troubled times. So it actually sounds pretty interesting. I know that I've got someone on the channel, one of my Valkyrie Tina, who used to work in law enforcement, so she probably would be interested by this. But anyway, Heroes in Blue. Again, this is indeed a Mill Creek entertainment production if you want to go ahead and get yourself a copy of it. But let me know your thoughts on this. Let me know your thoughts about the box office as well. What do you think Terminator Dark Fate's going to do? You think it's going to have a big box office weekend? Is it going to go in at 33.5? Over, under? Let me know in the comment section below. And of course, also in that pinned comment at the top. Let me know thoughts about this and all the things we talked about in the comment section below. If like this video, smash that like button. Give me a subscribe. It helps me out a lot. You are amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless.